In our next talk, we're going to have a little bit of a fireside chat, minus the fire, with Kevin Merritt and Tony Lockett. Tony Lockett is a part of the policy wing of the European Commission. Now, if you guys don't understand how the European Union works, Kevin will give a brief civics lesson on all of that to make it a little more understandable for the rest of us in the audience. So they'll have a discussion about how the European Commission is turning data into dollars. So please welcome to the stage Kevin Merritt and Tony Lockett.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks.
Tony, please.
Thanks, Kevin.
Have a seat. Thank you, Marcus. I don't think we're going to need a clicker. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Merritt. I'm the founder and CEO of Socrata. And this morning, it's my pleasure to be joined on the stage by Tony Lockett. Tony is head of the Directorate General of Regional and Urban Policy within the European Commission. So before Tony and I get started with our conversation, I thought it might be helpful for my American friends in the audience to give you a brief overview of how the European Commission is structured. I only share this with you because I've had to do a little research myself over the last year or two as I've gotten to know Tony and his team. So most of you all know that there is the European Union. It has 28 member countries in it. The European Commission is the executive branch that oversees the EU. And so you'll hear us refer to this phrase, Directorate General or DG. For most of you in the audience, just kind of think department or agency. So the European Commission has, 25 or 30 of these DGs. So there's one for energy and one for the economy. And Tony's is on regional and urban policy planning. So that's a little bit of background for you. So welcome to the Socrata Customer Summit, Tony. All right, so Tony comes all the way from Brussels, and so I thought maybe as a starting point, Tony, you can just tell us a little bit about DG Regio's mission and how sharing data with your audience supports that mission.
Great. Well, hi, everybody, and thanks very much, Kevin, first of all, congratulations for organizing such a great event, and thanks for inviting me here. I've had a really interesting time in the different sessions and talking to like-minded people from the US and further afield who are doing interesting things with public data. Just to give you a glimpse into my world, my reality in Brussels, the part of the European Commission where I work is responsible for spending about 50 billion euros of taxpayers' money every year. That's would be about 55, 56, I guess, billion dollars.
Yep.
Every year, which is invested in economic development at the regional and local level. And we put 2/3 of that money into the EU's less developed regions, less well-off regions. So to sort of sum it up, in the east and the south of Europe is where the lion's share of the money goes. And until a couple of years ago, we really didn't have a very good way of explaining how that money was spent, what kind of areas it was being invested in, and what kind of results were being achieved. So that's how we got interested in the whole open data thing, and we started working with you guys because for reasons of transparency, because we have legal obligations to communicate about what's going on, accountability, because the European Commission actually manages the whole EU budget, and we have to be accountable to the European Parliament, the Court of Auditors, and also and I think very importantly in terms of performance, we really wanted to put the focus on what the results of these funding programs were and to subject them to a bit more scrutiny so that we could try to raise the game of the partners we work with.
That's fantastic. Maybe you can shed some color and perspective, Tony, on who do you think of as your customer? I mean, are they researchers? Are they analysts? Are they internal employees of the Commission? Are they policy analysts who work for the governments that are part of the EU? How do you think about who your customer is?
Well, it's all of that and more, Kevin. I mean, it's pretty complicated for us because we're covering 28 different countries, 274 different regions, 500 million European citizens, And for most of them, for a start, English is not their mother tongue. So we have also the challenge of explaining things in a way that people can find it accessible and engaging. But our users cover really a very wide spectrum. So we have people who are involved in managing European funding. We have the research and academic community who are very interested in urban development, in the way cities and regions are developing across Europe. We work a lot with the media and with journalists. We work with civil society organizations. We receive plenty of questions from citizens who want to know what the EU is doing for them, where they live. So I think one of the big challenges we face and that we've been trying to work on with you and your colleagues is designing a user experience that can satisfy the needs of those very different user groups.
Yeah. How about within your DG, within your directorate? Are you both publishers of data and consumers of the data as well?
Yeah, we are, and I think this is something I've heard from a lot of other colleagues working on open data, is that you go into the open data adventure with your eyes fixed on the outside world, and you want to get your data out there and people to start engaging with it. But our experience, and I think this is something that's shared by many others, is that a lot of the immediate benefits were internal, because it forced us to take a good, long, hard look at our data. Sometimes it wasn't very pretty what we saw. We discovered that we had issues with data quality, with data governance, different people inside the organization using different numbers, using different ways of describing the data we were working with. So it's kind of brought people together internally within our organization and given us a good reason to work together. And I can also kind of announce that we're working on a new version of our open data platform that we're planning to launch in mid-December. And based on the success that we've had over the last year and a half, we're going to broaden it out to cover 4 different commission departments now. So also people dealing with employment and social policy, agricultural policy, and maritime and fisheries. We're going to double the volume of funding covered. So over the next 7 years, we're going to be investing about $700 billion through the different funds managed by those 4 DGs. So it's kind of sparked off a whole internal discussion, and it's really, showing its fruit now because we're able to expand and grow the project.
Very good. Inside tip, DG equals department. So you mentioned data quality and data governance, and I imagine in that you are pulling data from 28 different countries. You have all sorts of complex data reporting, data aggregation, data privacy, just all sorts of really thorny issues. When I think about working with some of our local customers, where getting the police department and the chief and the fire department to work together is alone a struggle. And here you've got 28 different countries with all sorts of different political ramifications. Tell us a little bit about the complex data requirements that the world that you live in, and how you navigate that a little bit.
Well, the good news is that we have a much better system now for collecting data and checking the quality of data, as we're moving into basically a new 7-year funding cycle. So we've working with the different countries and regions across Europe. They've all signed up to specific targets and objectives. We've been a lot tougher with them this time in terms of how they're going to use the money, what results they intend to achieve, what they're trying to change. So there is a whole system in place now for collecting that data. And the reason why we're relaunching our platform in December is we've basically pulled together all of that data, looking forward to the next 7 years, and then there's going to be regular reporting every year where they will say how much they've spent, how many jobs they've created, how many businesses have been helped, how many people have been connected to broadband internet, et cetera, et cetera. Wow. So we've got really a lot of very detailed information now. Some of the challenges linked to that, though, are if you want to tell a story around data, you have to be able to aggregate and present maybe like the tip of the iceberg, and then people who want to drill down to give them the opportunity to do so. And I was very interested to follow the session on usability yesterday, and I was talking with your colleague Clint, I think his name is, outside here. and we were talking about gradual disclosure and just showing, a few key charts for people who are not so familiar with the data. And then for those who want the detail, they can drill down. And then, issues to do with data quality, because, the reporting we get from the national and the regional level, people are, human beings make mistakes, so they can make unit mistakes. They'll report kilowatts instead of megawatts. They'll report meters instead of kilometers, and then that throws out all the aggregate figures at the EU level and the national level. And up until now, we've been kind of nice with our partners at the national and regional level, and we've cleaned up the data, and we've gone to talk to them before making it public. But in the future, we're going to be a bit tougher, and we're going to say, listen, guys, when you send us data, it's going to be out there, and if you make a mistake, you're the ones who are going to look stupid. So we're trying to handle it that way. But it's a transition.
That's great. So you mentioned your partners at the local and regional level. Who are they? Are they the stats bureaus, or is it the economic and development affairs groups? I mean, who are you getting the data from?
We have about 500 different bodies that are responsible for managing what we call our structural funds across the EU. And typically, at the national level, it would be the finance ministry, for example. When it comes to labor market measures, it would be the employment ministry. And then we work a lot with regional and local authorities who are managing the funding. One of the tricky things about the EU budget is that actually 80% of it is spent through the national and the regional level, the structural funds and agricultural funding, but yet the Commission is accountable for the whole budget. So when we get quizzed by the Court of Auditors or the European Parliament, we have to explain what's going on, even though we're not fully in control of all of the decisions that are taken on project selections and so on. So for us, the whole open data transparency thing is a way of getting some more scrutiny about those decisions that are being taken there at the national and regional level, allowing people to compare between countries, between regions, between funding programs, to see who's performing best, to ask awkward questions, and to get some better performance through the system.
Fantastic. So one of the things that really impressed me about you and your team, and kind of connecting that with our announcement earlier this morning about our enhancements to the product to allow data publishers to tell stories with data. I think one of the things that your team in particular has done really well is work with data journalists to really kind of disseminate your story. Can you share with the audience a little bit about how you think about communications and marketing as a core and integral part of what you and your team do?
Well, as I'm sure everybody in the audience is aware, Europe has been going through some tough times in recent years with the economic and financial crisis. These days, the migration crisis, which is very much in the news. And I think, our political leaders at the European level feel that public resources are scarce, and we need to do a better job in terms of explaining how that European budget is used, what the results are that are achieved thanks to the investments. So definitely we put a big premium on communicating about that and working, as you mentioned, with the media and journalists. We just last week in Brussels had a big event with about 6,000 people in town from regions and cities all across Europe, and we had 250 journalists there with us for a media program. And I ran a session with them on data, where we basically laid out for them all the different data sources we have, the open data platform that we've built together with Socrata. Also, we have plenty of socioeconomic data going down to the fairly local level. And for them, it's really useful material because they can tell stories around that, comparing their country to the neighboring country, comparing regions within their country, let's say the north and the south of Italy as one example. But it's in our experience, it's challenging working with the media, I should say, because their job is also to point out when things aren't going so well.
Sure.
And I think we have to respect that and accept that criticism is part of the game, but ultimately, criticism will help us to improve. But in terms of developing the culture in a way that people are prepared to be more open with the data, that is a challenge.
That's great. So you and I met for the first time in person. I think it was last summer. I visited you in Brussels, and we had lunch and covered a whole range of topics. And I was trying to educate myself a little bit about what was going on in Europe, and so I asked for your thoughts on the readiness and the appetite for the adoption of cloud computing. And you shared with me candidly that it was a little bit of a struggle even within the Commission to embrace cloud computing and some more modern technologies. Certainly you're a trailblazer. You're using the Socrata platform, which is in the cloud. You're part of the Commission. Give me an update. A year, 15 months later. How is cloud adoption going in Europe and within the Commission specifically?
Well, it's an ongoing debate. As I said, public budgets are squeezed at all levels of government in Europe, and the Commission is no exception. And so, we've been asking ourselves some tough questions in terms of the way we do IT procurement, which probably still isn't terribly efficient. We probably spend too much time procuring systems. We have too many IT systems. They're not sufficiently interoperable. They're not, great for users either inside or outside. So I think the Commission is conscious of this and wants to improve. But like any large bureaucracy, change takes time. So last year, the Commission launched a procurement process covering cloud computing, but infrastructure as a system and platform as a system for the time being. There hasn't been a similar call covering software as a system, software as a service, sorry, I should say. So this project that we've launched with Socrata is a bit of a kind of trailblazer, which means that we're being extra scrutinized. And
sounds like we're the canary in the coal mine. I hope we survive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we all do. But it means that what we've been able to achieve is a bit of a proof of concept that will affect, I think, the Commission's willingness in the future to engage with other cloud type services. But it's definitely something we're looking into.
Great. So you shared with me that you've enjoyed the Customer Summit. You've been able to get the benefit of hearing some perspectives from some of the American folks here that are running great open data programs in cities and states and federal agencies. There's even some folks from Africa and Australia here. We've got a few minutes left, and if you could make one ask of the audience that we have here, how they can help you do your job better, what kinds of things would you ask of them?
Well, I think we're always in the market for good ideas. So one of the great things about an event like this is we basically all get to pick one another's brains and steal or borrow one another's ideas. So I think for us, some of the advantages of working with Socrata were, the sort of agile way of working, the iterative way of working. I remember when Saf came to see us in Brussels and he explained the kind of design partnership. That was also something that we were very happy about since we were relatively new to the whole open data world. But I think one of the interesting things that Socrata offers is this kind of community. And the announcement that you made this morning that innovations and developments that were being driven by your customers, it will be easier to share those. Yep. I think that is something that's potentially very beneficial for all of us. So I think one of the things that's been a theme running through this whole conference is this business of storytelling and contextualizing the data. So that's my big takeaway, and I definitely would be very interested to hear other experiences and to see what other colleagues are doing here. So I'm still around for another few hours before I head off to the airport. If anybody wants to meet up in the area outside and have a chat or share experiences that they're working on, I'd be very, very happy to do that.
That's terrific. We likewise have enjoyed the design partnership with you and your team. That if you saw the announcement that we made this morning around the ability to tell stories, that came from literally conversations with virtually all of our customers and their frustrations about being able to add a narrative context around their data. So it's been a wonderful design partnership. We're almost out of time, but I'd like to open up the floor to the audience. If there are any questions that you'd like to ask Tony Lockett from the European Commission, feel free to make your way to a mic. If not, I think we're coming to the end of the hour. I don't know, Marcus, what's next? Lunch? It's feeling like lunchtime to me, but I don't know. Any questions? Here we got one coming up.
Hi, I'm from the city of Providence, Rhode Island, which started that area started the Industrial Revolution in the United States. Anyway, I've been sort of butting heads with our economic development director, and he's sort of not seeing the value of data in that field, and we had somebody from Connecticut, put out some pretty big numbers. What was that 700 billion that you mentioned? What sort of time frame?
That's 700 billion over 7 years, so it's about $100 billion per year.
Used for, again, that's the total budget for economic development, or?
Yeah, that's spread across, with the 2/3 of it going to the poorer, the less developed regions, but it's spread across all of the member states of the European Union, yeah. So, the European budget is relatively small in absolute terms. It's only about 1% of GDP, but particularly since there's been a reduction in public investment due to the crisis, about a 15% reduction in the availability of public funding for investment, it's become one of the biggest sources of investment for growth, especially in the less well-off regions. In some European countries, it represents 50% or more of the available funding for public investment.
Okay, and the follow-up question is, you might not know this idiom, but on a shoestring, like how would you do the same job, on a tiny scale?
Well, the numbers I mentioned are big, but the budget for our open data work is not huge. So, I think some of the good advice I received a couple of years ago from other people working on open data is to start small, to start with the less complicated and controversial data sets. So the first data sets we put out there were actually things that were already in the public domain, just to reassure people in-house that we weren't going to suddenly, put information out there that could get us into trouble. It was just putting information out there in a more accessible and a more visual way. And then to kind of find allies within your organization. So in our case, we went to talk to our colleagues who do evaluation, our economic analysis team, our financial management team, and we kind of sold the idea to a few people. So we had some, advocates within the organization. And you mentioned that you were finding it difficult to get support from your senior level. In our case, that was something that definitely helped because we had the support of our top manager, and he kind of championed the project, which helped us to get ahead. But I think if you can start relatively small and then have some early successes, which you can then promote and grow, that was the approach that we followed and seemed to work for us in any case.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, we're out of time, Tony. Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
joining us at the summit and
Thanks
sharing the
again for the
stage with me.
invitation.